So I'm only going to kind of like just glaze over this because I'm sure there's a lot of other videos on how to do a string change. The only reason this video would be unique at all is just because we are doing a 7-string, which, you know, is just slightly more involved. You know, it's not really that radically different, but the idea is, you know, we have a double locking Floyd Rose style trem here. And if you've never really tinkered around with your guitar before, or you know, if you've never actually tried to do any of this stuff yourself, and you know, everybody at some point's got to cross that line and decide they want to do things, and you got to admit you don't know some stuff. So you know, if anybody has any questions, don't be embarrassed. You know, I had to ask those questions myself one day, and basically, what you're going to want to have for yourself is a string winder is always handy. I mean, it's not, you know, life or death, but it's really the only way I've ever found to get nice clean winds on your peg head. If you do it by hand, they're always going to come off uneven, and it takes forever, and it's just kind of stupid to have to do it. Next there, you got your wire cutter. You don't want to leave the whole length of your string on there. And I have a book called The Guitar Repair Manual or something like that by Dan Erlewine, who's a very well-renowned guitar tech, and basically his recommendation is whether you have a wraparound or a string through, or you know, a Floyd Rose like this, or whatever you got going on, whether you got a Bigsby, string your strings through the tailpiece, however they connect, and then you want a good reference point is to cut the string 2 tuning posts past where you're going. So for example, we got our high E here. If you wanted this string, I would cut it right here on the G. So, you know, that's just about what you're looking for. And some guys are going to say, no, you want as much mass as you can, you know, so you're going to wind on the whole thing. And then, like, you have the PRS style tuning pegs, which promote having as little string as possible, those low mass tuners, they call them. And so everybody's got a different opinion. I like the 2 tuning post pass. I've done it since I was a little kid. I used to restring my dad's guitars. When I was a kid, I've probably done 1,000 string changes in my life, easy. Of course you need strings. And in our case, I was totally wrong. I said we were doing 11s. I thought they were. These are actually 10s with a slightly thicker low B. It's a 60 gauge. I think the other one was like a 58 or something. It's you know, barely going to be a noticeable difference, which is kind of actually disappointing for me. Your guitar should have come with an Allen kit. Actually, a little set of wrenches. This one is going to unlock almost everything. And then this other guy here is going to be to adjust your truss rod, which will be another video. But essentially, just so you understand this, if you were to remove this on this style guitar, which is probably a stupid way of putting it, but this is what's called a truss rod cover. This piece of plastic here, the screw on it. And if you were to remove this, you'd see a hexagonal shaped, truss rod. And what's happening there is you have a steel rod that runs the length of the guitar neck, and if your strings are way high off the neck and you have this kind of bowing action, the truss rod can be adjusted with either more tension or relief to straighten out that neck. And here's where shit gets really complicated. What you have going on here is you're looking at the angle of the headstock, right? Okay, well that determines how much pull you have coming down from the neck itself, and then you actually have your nut, which is in this case acting as the end of the road. So technically the string stops here, okay? They get locked down after they've been tuned into place, and this is basically like a big giant finger or something like that, just holding things down into place. So then you got the strings running, of course, the length of the neck, and then connecting into the bridge. And here's where it gets goofy. Between here and the headstock itself, you kind of got a lot of different factors, and these pieces at the end here are called saddles, and each of these individual saddles determines the individual string heights themselves. But then you also have, in the case of a Floyd Rose, an adjustment on either side to actually kick the bridge one way or the other itself. So you could have, if you wanted to, and some guys prefer this kind of stuff, you could have the treble side, so the skinnier strings would actually be higher off the fretboard or closer to the fretboard than the thicker strings would be. It all comes down to player preference, man, and there is no right or wrong. I mean, if you like your strings 16 feet off your neck and you love having to pull them all the way down, or if you want them so close that, you know, they're fretting out as soon as you touch them, whatever your thing is, man, I mean, whatever you're comfortable with, that's really, you know, the end of it, and there's no wrong answer. And then again, as far as the Floyd Rose itself goes, it's very similar to a Fender style string through tremolo. So just, you know, the idea is a Floyd can go up and down and can kind of be radically changed, whereas like a regular Strat style tremolo is really only capable of being dipped and pulled up a little tiny bit. And I've seen some Strats that can get a, you know, like a half step, you know, yank up on them, but usually it's not too extreme. I mean, like, you think like Hendrix, think of a guy like Jeff Beck. Jeff Beck really is a great trem user for a Strat as far as that goes, but you're not going to get those big, you know, Steve Vai kind of bad horsey, you know, crazy ripple stuff. But anyway, basically the only addition is, first of all, let's start with the back. If you've never opened up your guitar, you should. You just sit down, take the whole thing apart. You know, I mean, within reason, of course, but I mean, maybe I should say open the whole thing up so you can kind of see what's going on. But I had somebody send me a question about springs in the back too. Hey, that guy, I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was exactly, but these are where your springs get attached. And what's happening here is, this is called a claw, and it's bolted into the body of the guitar itself. And it's just a thin piece of metal that holds a series of boots, I guess would be the best thing to call it. And these are actually holding down the bass block of the Floyd Rose itself. Okay, so this is the bottom or the underside of the tremolo, or the bridge itself, I should say. And feel free to just massacre me on my linguistics here. I know they're pretty off. I'm running on like no sleep here. We're having our housewarming party tomorrow, so yeah. Anyway, but the idea is the more springs that you have attached to your claw here, the more tension that's pulling back down on the strings. So what I'm saying is, if you wanted to go to a much heavier gauge string, it's going to have more force to pull away the bridge, and it's going to raise your action. And to get that back under control, you're going to have added springs, and then also you may have to tighten this further into the body of the guitar to give it more tension to pull that bridge back down to the body of the guitar and get your strings where they want to be, or where you want them to be. Now, here's the thing. Right now you can see how this is totally sunk into the body of the guitar, right? Okay, because there's no tension from strings pulling this thing where you want it to be. Now, unless you're purposely deviating from the idea. The reason I have my trem arm out here is because it's pretty handy when you're wanting to move the bridge around. But here's the deal, guys. You can see how this is totally sunk into the body of the guitar. When this is set up properly and everything's locked in and you're all dialed in, you want it to look like this. Like right about there. You want it to be level with the body of the guitar, so you can pull back on it and get some highs, or you can dive down for your dive bombs. The idea is you can go up and down, okay? So you want it like right smack in the middle, nice and even, and get a nice uniform string height off the neck. I think, of course, unless for some reason you happen to like your shit all goofy. God bless you if you do. But so what we're gonna do today is, because we're barely adjusting the string gauge at all, there's probably not going to be much of a need for messing with stuff, which is great because I could fucking use a break. But the reason I have this 9-volt battery out is some dudes will use a 9-volt, some guys will use like a thick butter knife or anything, block of wood, you know. But the point is, you want to lift up, and I apologize, I don't have an extra set of hands here. You're going to lift up your trem, slide like the 9-volt underneath it, so it is propped up into relative place. We're going to then go ahead and open up these individual saddles here and put the strings inside of it and put tension on it. And we're going to tune this thing to pitch before we remove the block again. And we're going to try to get this thing as close to being in tune and being all leveled out as possible. If when we tune the guitar up, the bridge starts to move up or down, we're going to have to adjust those springs in the back and get this thing leveled off. It's not as complicated as it sounds, as much as it just is a pain in the ass at the end of the day. I mean, there's not a whole lot of crazy science going on, but it just takes forever. And you know, if you have plans or something like that, like, just count on being late, because it never goes the way it's supposed to.